Okay, so here I'm going to be looking at an IELTS Task 2. The task says, in some countries, young people are encouraged to work or travel for a year between finishing high school and starting university studies. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages for young people who decide to do this. Okay, so first we're going to look at why it's so important to properly read the task. Okay, well, first off, we have to go and look and see what the band descriptors for the writing task 2 have to say. So the first criteria is task response, and the first part of that has to do with whether or not the question is fully and relevantly answered, or rather whether the task is fully and relevantly addressed. So if you only partially address the task, your score for task response might be limited to a 5. If you address all parts of the task, though some parts may be more fully covered than others, your score might be a 6. And if you address all parts of the task, then your score might be a 7. So it's important to know what the task is asking of you. Now your part 2 task is going to have at least one of the following. There might be background facts. Let me try that again. There might be background facts. There might be an opinion, but there will definitely be a task. So the background facts are, well, as it suggests, just factual information about the situation. The opinion is going to be someone else's opinion on the situation or issue. And then the task, of course, is going to be telling you what you should do. So let's go back and have a look at our example. Okay, so this bit here, this is the background. This is just giving you information on the situation. And then the actual task starts off with this verb here. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages for young people who decide to do this. So don't focus too much on the background information. Look at what the task requires you to do and then do that. But let's go on to have a look at the different types of questions that there are in the IELTS Writing Task 2. Okay, so speaking of the question types in Task 2, we've basically got 4 types. We've got the argument questions or argument tasks, where you have to give an opinion, but you also need to argue a side. And then you have the argument type questions or tasks, where you have to give an opinion, but you have to argue both sides. So for example, you have to argue that something is advantageous, but also that something is disadvantageous. And then there are discussion questions where you don't really need to give an opinion, you just need to discuss the issue. And then there are the mixed type questions where you have to do both. You have to discuss the issue and either give an opinion or argue a side. So let's look at some examples of these. Okay, so here I have 5 sample essay tasks. And the first one says, the best way to reduce the number of traffic accidents is to make all young drivers complete a safe driving education course before being licensed to drive. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Second one, the threat of nuclear weapons determines world peace, but nuclear power provides cheap and clean energy. Do the benefits of nuclear technology outweigh the advantages? And then the third one, a large number of deaths are caused by road accidents. Why do so many road accidents occur? Make recommendations that would help to reduce their number. And the fourth one, modern life is very stressful. People have to manage their time and other resources very carefully. How can they have less stress when they are so busy? And then the last one, work is taking a much more important role in people's lives. Why are people working so much? Do you think this trend is good or bad? Alright, so let's have a look to see in which category these particular tasks fall. Alright, so let's have a look at the first task, the one about the traffic accidents. So the task there starts off with a statement that the best way to reduce the number of traffic accidents is blah, 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 blah. And you just need to say to what extent you agree or disagree. So you don't have to argue both sides. You don't have to go into the pros and cons of this. Just choose one. Just choose one and argue the point. So that is going to be the first one we looked at. The one that's an argument question, but you just need to give an opinion and argue one side. Okay, and then our second task, the one about nuclear weapons. This one starts off with some background information, could be an opinion, it doesn't really matter. Now the actual task, do the benefits of nuclear technology outweigh the disadvantages? So this is a yes/no question, but it's pretty much just, do you agree or disagree? So you need to take a side and give your opinion. Pretty simple. So don't let the yes/no question format fool you. Okay, now the third task starts off with some background information about the large number of deaths. Then we have a question, why do so many road accidents occur? And then we have a task, make recommendations that would help to reduce their number. Okay, so the question word why tells you that you need to discuss. And then furthermore, we have the make recommendations. So this is definitely a discussion type question. You don't need to take an opinion. You don't need to argue a side, just discuss. Okay, then number 4, about modern life being stressful. We have a question word here, how. It doesn't say why, it says how, but still a question word. That tells you need to discuss the issue. So how can they have less stress when they are so busy? So this one is discuss an issue, take a position, argue the point. Pretty simple. Very similar to the one before. And then we have the last one. So our background information, work is taking a much more important role in people's lives. And then the actual task, why are people working so much? Okay, so this is the discussion part. Then, do you think this trend is good or bad? So here you have to give an opinion. So this is a mixed question example. So you need to discuss the first task they give you. You need to discuss the reasons why people are working so hard. And then you also need to give your opinion on whether or not you think this trend is good or bad. So example of a mixed question type. Okay, so let's get back to our example task where it says discuss the advantages and disadvantages for young people who decide to do this. There's no mention of do you agree or do you disagree. There's no mention of your opinion. So this is a purely discussion essay. So should you include your opinion? No, they don't ask for that. So please keep that in mind. Keep in mind what the task requires of you. Otherwise, you're going to be penalized for task achievement. Okay, so here is a sample response. If I do a word count, it comes to 295 words, which is more than what is required, but it's not crazy. If you look at the structure, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs, which is not necessarily bad, but let's see how it's structured. All right, so let's have a look at the first paragraph, our introduction. There has been a growing number of young people decide to take study break for work or vacation before continuing pursuing higher education. Some parents believed it is advantageous, whereas others were not convinced and strongly opposed to it. Now, for the time being, I'm going to ignore the grammatical mistakes there. Actually, this is not a bad introduction, because when we have a discussion essay that we need to write, our introduction should follow the following outline. It should contain some background using your own knowledge or personalization. You can also use a straight to the point approach, which I'm not going to talk about right now. And that logically is going to lead to the issue and the purpose of your essay. Now, as far as the background goes, there are a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. It's got to be true what you are writing, and also it has to be related to the topic. And when you're writing a discussion essay, it should hint at the discussion that's going to follow and also the seriousness of the subject. So then you can logically introduce the content. So if we have a look at the introduction that this person wrote, well, the first sentence is kind of lifted from the task itself, but it does kind of tie your writing with the task. The background here about some parents, I think saying some parents is better than just saying some people, because remember, the task tells us that this is about young people who decide to take a gap year. So it could be that their parents are concerned about this, or maybe educators, or maybe people in government, or maybe some specific group of people. But don't just say some people believe it is blah, 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 blah. Be specific about the group of people who you think have a particular opinion on this issue that you're writing about. Now, they could have perhaps personalized this a bit better, but the way it is now, it's not bad. Maybe they could just tell us why they think this is such a big deal. Or maybe just a little bit of a hint as to why this topic is even worth discussing. That's the only thing that I would say is missing from this. Now, as for the mistakes, well, here. So we either need a relative pronoun, so there has been a growing number of people, there's been a growing number of young people who have decided to take study breaks for work or vacation. So we either need to have a relative pronoun here. This needs to be pluralized, so it's breaks. Or we could say there's been a growing number of young people deciding to take study breaks, but we still need to pluralize this. So either use a relative pronoun or use a participle here instead of this decide. Before continue, this should be continuing, continue pursuing. Hang on a second. Doesn't this mean the same thing? Okay. For work or vacation, before continuing their pursuit of higher education, some parents believed. Why is this in the past tense? Is this not true anymore? So some parents believe it is advantageous, whereas others were. Also, why is this in the past tense? So maybe are. Whereas others are not convinced, and let me put a be verb here, and are strongly opposed to it. Okay, so now we finished with the introduction. And here is our suggested structure. So it consists of, well, possibly three additional paragraphs. This is going to be our body. You're going to discuss the advantages and the disadvantages each in a separate paragraph. And then at the end, you're going to give final thoughts. So from our example, this is the first body paragraph, and it reads like this. It if of some young people who make up the decision were motivated by a few benefits caused. First, it helps them to become more confident and independent. The youngsters experience real life's challenges and obstacles by staying out and working for a living. This life experience assists them in understanding meaning of life and develop more mature personality. All right, so let's look at the possible introduction of your body paragraphs. So when talking about disadvantages and advantages, you need to signpost whether you're talking about advantages or whether you're talking about disadvantages. So for example, you could say a clear advantage is that, and then you have a subject and a verb. Or it could be a clear positive is followed by a noun phrase. And similarly, you can use these phrases to signpost disadvantages. Now, when writing a paragraph, the topic sentence should be in the beginning or near the beginning of your writing. For example, here we have a piece of writing dealing with road accidents and what the biggest cause is. And your topic sentence will be followed by support. So let's look at our example. This appears to be the topic sentence, but it's so there are so many errors in it that it's difficult to understand the message that the writer is trying to convey. It could be that they're trying to say it is certain that some young people who make this decision were motivated by the benefits, but I'm guessing. I'm not exactly sure. If that's the case, then this would kind of make sense, because here they would then talk about the first benefit. All right, so first, it helps them to become more confident and independent. Okay, and then they go on to explain how the youngsters experience real life challenges. There's just a problem here with this possessive. Life should not be possessive. It's just a noun. So real life challenges and obstacles by staying out and working for a living. Now this phrase, working for, we need an article here, working for a living. And as for this staying out, I think what they're trying to say is perhaps leave home. Because if you say stay out, it means like to leave your home, but maybe just for a day or so, or to stay out late. Whereas if you actually go out and make your own living, that's not staying out, that's leaving home. This life experience assists them in understanding meaning of life. Now, for meaning of life, we need an article, the, and develop more mature personality. Well, personalities are a countable noun, so we're going to have to say and develop a more mature personality. So if we correct all the mistakes from the first body paragraph, it'll look something like this. Okay, so now we're turning to the disadvantages, and this part of the writing is divided into 3 paragraphs. Despite some of benefits it brought, there are some drawbacks about taking time off study. First of all, some people might find difficulty to adjust themselves back to routine of study. They lost motivation and interests in acquiring a higher degree. Moreover, they're putting themselves at risk of not being able to enroll to desired course or college, as some colleges strictly control the enrollment application and would prefer students further studies immediately after secondary school. In addition, it is costly to stop study temporarily at this golden age, as young people not only spending their money but their precious time in exploring the world and themselves. They may feel left behind or overaged after rejoining college or university by looking other fellow peers had become senior or nearly finishing the study. All right, let's look at the layout. Okay, so this shows that there's going to be some contrast now. So we're done with the advantages. We're now turning to the disadvantages. Here we have moreover. Okay, so the writer is using moreover here to try to further the argument, but okay, so we'll talk about moreover. And then here we have in addition, starting the last paragraph. Okay, so here, despite of some benefits it brought, now we just finished talking about the benefits, so why not replace the sum with these? So despite these benefits it brought, I don't know why this is in the past tense again. This person uses past tense all over the place, but it should be present tense. Actually, this can be omitted. Sorry, this can be omitted. So despite the benefits, there are some drawbacks about taking time off study. This preposition here, let's change this to there are some drawbacks to. Drawbacks goes with to, not about. But okay, it's understandable. Okay, again, we have this mechanical first if all. I'm sure this is just a typo. That should be off. First of all, some people might find difficulty to just find difficulty. Difficulty doesn't go with the verb find. Difficulty does go with the verb experience. So if you really want to use the noun difficulty, instead of the adjective difficult, then you should use the verb experience. So some people might experience difficulty, but then this has to be a gerund. So might experience difficulty adjusting themselves back to routine of study. Now we're talking about a specific routine, so this needs to be the. Adjusting themselves back to the routine of studying. They lost. I don't know why this is a noun. This should be a verb. They lose motivation and interests. This should not be pluralized. An interest in acquiring higher degree. Degree is a countable noun, so it should be a higher degree. Now, here, the word moreover. Let's have a look at how the word moreover should be used. Just be careful how you use moreover. Moreover is used to make a sub-point in addition to your main point. It's not used to add further main points on your way towards your conclusion. So just keep that in mind. So if we look at this second paragraph, this paragraph has nothing to do with the argument here that some people might find it difficult to adjust to the routine of study. It's about something completely different. This is about the risk of not being able to get into your desired university. So moreover here is not being used appropriately. This is a completely new point. But anyway, let's look at the sentence. Okay, so here's the original sentence, and here is the one that I reworded a little bit. Now you'll notice that the paragraph is essentially just one sentence. I mean, if your paragraph consists of one sentence, it doesn't exactly follow the structure that a paragraph should follow. A paragraph should consist of a topic sentence followed by supporting sentences, and here there's just one sentence, which means there's no logical progression. You don't have an opinion and then support following that. It's just kind of a mishmash of a topic and then some ideas that support the topic. But there's no development. There's no sentences that actually support your idea. So that's a big problem. But then if we just go on to look at language, I know here enroll it's got this red line underneath it, but you can spell enroll either E-N-R-O-L or E-N-R-O-L-L, it doesn't matter. Okay, so in the original we have two desired course, but it should be moreover they are putting themselves at risk of not being able to enroll in their desired course or college. You enroll in a course or you enroll in a college, although for college I suppose we could also say you enroll at a college. And then just one more thing here, when we see studies, we should have the possessive adjective their studies. So not and would prefer students further studies. Studies is always studies is always preceded by a possessive adjective. So it could be my studies, your studies, their studies, or whatever. So just keep that in mind when you use the word studies. Okay, and then moving on to the next paragraph. These two paragraphs might actually be better off joined, since they kind of deal with somewhat, in some sense they do kind of deal with the same topic. So it might be better to join them. But as they are here, they are separate paragraphs. So let's have a look at them. Again, here's the original, and here's the one where I made some changes. So it says, in addition, it is costly to stop study temporary. Now here we have a verb, so we should be using an adverb instead of an adjective. And remember what I said about studies here. Now, here we can't really say, we could say your, we could use your as a possessive adjective, but it might be better to use one's. So we could say, in addition, it's costly to temporarily stop one's studies at this golden age, as young people not only, and then here they have the gerund spending, but it should be spend their money, but their precious time. So this is a consideration in addition to the first one. So we need the word also. But also their precious time in exploring the world and themselves. They may feel left behind or overaged. Now, this overaged, I mean, I do understand what the writer is trying to say. Like you're in class with a bunch of people, let's say between 18 and 22 years old, so you kind of feel out of place. This overaged, even though I understand what the writer is saying, in English, this is not used. So you feel out of place since everyone else is so much older than you, so much younger than you are. After rejoining college or university, where am I now? By looking at their fellow peers. Now, I'm not sure why you are looking at them. I think the word the writer is looking for is just noticing. Because you're not looking at people all the time. You just notice that. So, noticing their peers. Now, here the writer used the word fellow. But if somebody is your peer, then they aren't necessarily also your fellows. So you could say, for example, say fellow classmates. You could say fellow coworkers. But instead of saying fellow classmates, you could also just say peers because you are in the same group. But you cannot say fellow peers. The word fellow is redundant here. We don't need that. The meaning of this is implied in peers. If you are somebody's peer, you are necessarily their fellow also. Had become, now because we're talking about more than one person, this needs an S here. So they had become seniors. I did like that he used the past perfect tense here. Or she. I don't know if the writer is a woman. Or nearly finished again here. He said, or she said, the study. Now remember here, this needs to be in the plural. It needs to be studies. And again, studies needs to go with, why did I do that now? Studies needs to go with a possessive adjective. So their studies. Okay, so let's look at this writer's conclusion. By and large, taking gap year for work or vacation before joining university is definitely not for everyone. Young people advised to do some research beforehand and understand the objective of the decision. Now, apart from some spelling mistakes and some grammar mistakes, it's not a terrible conclusion. I mean, here we were dealing with a discussion essay. So in a discussion essay, you don't have a single opinion. So you don't need to come to any final conclusion or anything like that. But what you do need to do in your conclusion, if you're writing a discussion essay, is to mention some of the topic or some of the ground that you've already covered in your essay. Maybe focusing on the nature or some difficulties or an interesting aspect of it. And then possibly giving final thoughts. Today I'm not going to talk about giving final thoughts. That probably deserves a video all by itself. So here's a possible structure that you might want to follow. So although the suggestions for reducing this habit seem simple or solving this problem, and I have presented some analysis about whatever issue you're writing about, ultimately, and then you can give some concluding thoughts, which is pretty much what the writer did here. He said he didn't just slam the idea of having a gap here. He said it's definitely not for everyone, so people are advised to do some research beforehand. Just about the grammar. So since gap year is accountable, we need an article. And here, there's an attempt to use the passive voice, but he forgot the be verb, or she forgot the be verb. So young people are advised. Okay, so now let's have a look at the overall essay. Okay, so here is the whole original essay in all its glory. It comes to 296 words, broken up into 7 paragraphs. Just to remind you of what the task was, in some countries, young people are encouraged to work or travel for a year between finishing high school and starting university studies. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages for young people who decide to do this. Okay, so let's have a look at the band descriptors, what they say about this. Let's see if I can move this over here. Okay, I want to specifically look at, so I can make this bigger. All right, so let's have a look at task achievement. Let's look at, all right, so let's look at band 7. For band 7, you would need to address all parts of the task. There would need to be a clear position throughout the response, and your main ideas need to be presented, extended, and supported. So let's look at this. I would say that yes, there is a clear position throughout the response, but are the main ideas well extended? Well, I mean, look at this. This paragraph consists of 2 sentences. This paragraph consists of 1 sentence. So you can say that this person can get a 7 for task achievement because the ideas are somewhat limited in how they are supported. So let's look at this here. Presents relevant main ideas, but some may be inadequately developed. I wouldn't say they're unclear. They're just inadequately developed. Okay, let's move on to coherence and cohesion. Let's look at band 7 again. It says logically organizes information and ideas. There's a clear progression throughout. Uses a range of cohesive devices appropriately, although there may be some under or overuse. Presents a clear topic within each paragraph. Well, I want to focus more on the last one. And so let's consider this paragraph again. This paragraph just has 1 sentence. So could we say there's a central topic? Well, is this even, can this even really be considered a paragraph? Because there are no supporting sentences. So I would say paragraphing is inadequate. I can say that paragraphing is used effectively here. So uses paragraphing, but not always logically. So I'm not sure why these 2 paragraphs are not combined. I don't see the logic in that. Let's look at cohesive devices. Let's see here. Okay, so here we have first. Here we have some referencing. This life experiences system. Here we have second. They are more. Okay, so the referencing is good by using pronouns. That's adequate. First of all, moreover, although I talked about the problems I had with moreover. Here he refers to the student skin by using they, in addition. they. There seems to be a pattern there. Okay, so I wouldn't say that the referencing is not clear or the referencing is not appropriate, but to get a 7, your paragraphing has to be logical, and I don't see that here. Let's move on to lexical resource or vocabulary. Let's do a 7 again. The big thing here is use a sufficient range of vocabulary to allow for some flexibility and precision. And then the one that is more difficult to achieve is this one, using less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocation. Now, they do allow for occasional errors in word choice, occasional, and also occasional errors in spelling or word formation. But the problem here is, okay, so here he or she uses the word advantageous. Advantageous is okay. Youngsters is okay. You know what, maybe I should use the other file. Hang on. Okay, this is much easier. Let's see here. Okay, so see, now this here is an example of a problem with word formation. So does it happen occasionally or does it happen more often than that? So we have this continuing. He does seem to have a systematic problem with the pronouns being left out, because we see it here and we see it, where else do we see it? Oh, here. And where were the other ones? Oh, here. So this is the same mistake that's made, I would say, more than occasionally. There are some prepositions that are left out. These mistakes is more about grammar. We do have phrases like mature personality, which is tied together with develop. Pursue, that's a good word to use. But then here, find it difficult. Here is it find difficulty. Okay. So I would say it's an attempt to use less common vocabulary, but with some inaccuracy. And even though there are, well, very few, but there are a few mistakes in spelling or word formation, but you can still understand what the message is. So probably a 6 also. And then let's have a look at grammar. Here is 7 again. It says uses a variety of complex structures, produces frequent error-free sentences. Frequent error-free sentences. Well, you can't say that's true, can you? Because in this sentence there are mistakes, in this sentence there are mistakes, in this sentence there are mistakes. So that's definitely not true. You can just go by the number of mistakes that there are to see that you definitely can't get a 7. So this piece of writing dealing with gap years, I'd say probably get a 6.